it's about the consistency of what you're doing. And you could have success, but you also have to understand that that success might not be instantaneous.
Right.
And you have to have the patience, the discipline, the fortitude, but also the drive to stick with it.
You are listening to Notables, an Education Through Music podcast. As always, I'm your host, Noah, and my guest today is Chris Atlas, who is the Executive Vice President of East Coast Operations and Urban Music at Warner Records. Hey, Chris, thanks for being here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. To kick things off here, how did you first get involved in music?
I've always been interested and involved in music. In school, it started in, the playground, the cafeteria, doing the beatbox, banging on the cafeteria table. Rap was a big part of my scene when I was coming up and a young kid. Mm-hmm. Music was always played in my house. My dad, who was actually a Baptist minister, would always sing, in the house, and, we would go to church, and, I would sing in the choir. And so music was always in and around my house. As I continued to grow up, I started DJing. I had my stint when I, tried to be an artist and a performer, but music always was in my life, and it was always a part of who I thought I wanted to be. When I went on to high school, I continued to DJ, continued to, work on my group. And also I even had a stint as a producer where a partner and I, we actually had a production duo, and we would produce tracks, not only for ourselves, but other local artists in the Bronx, because, I'm a kid from the Bronx as well. So again, music, given my background, given my interest, it was always present, in my life and in my house. And as I continued to aspire and pursue my education, that's where I actually got on the professional, path, and decided to go on to the business side of music and entertainment.
We're in CS 55 right now, which is a school in the South Bronx. We're, I think, probably about a 30 to 40 minute Bronx 41 bus ride from where you grew up in Gun Hill area.
Yep.
So I'm interested to know about how or if your school music experiences had any impact on your sort of extracurricular music experiences with the DJing and the producing that you got into before the business side of things.
Yeah, well, music in school, I actually went to St. Philip's and James, which is a Catholic school on Boston Road in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So music, we had our music class. We actually would sing in the services that would actually happen at the school. So music was present. But I think a lot of my career and music aspirations stemmed outside of school, particularly the time that I was a kid, which is a long time ago. I'm not going to say how long, but it was a long time ago. I think the music programs and music and education has really evolved in a tremendous and incredible way. But I think the music class that we had and singing in school actually was a great outlet in terms of just, kind of channeling that creative energy and spirit that I think I had as a kid.
Yeah, so maybe if it wasn't directly impacting the way that you were working with music, it was sort of there in the background. When you started working with the tools that were more interesting to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah. You ended up going to school for business.
Yes.
At Penn State.
Penn
if
State.
I recall correctly. Yeah. So what led you in that direction as opposed to a more music aligned direction at the start of your sort of post-secondary?
Absolutely. Well, at that time, when, I first graduated high school, went to college, I went the business route because I wasn't clear on the professional aspect that I could work within music and entertainment, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And there weren't as many music-driven programs, particularly in higher learning and higher education, as they are now.
Right.
So for me, going the business administration route was, one, I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew it was important to have a college, degree in terms of career, aspirations that I had. Wanted to please my parents, So, and I was a good student. I was always a good student. I was a, honest student. I was on the honor roll. So, college I felt was actually a great path for me, which is why I did, the 2.5 years and got my associates in business administrations. But while I was, at Penn State and actually maturing and growing up, it actually started to open my eyes to the fact that I can have a career in entertainment, and whether that was music, whether that was marketing, whether that was communications. I started to meet people. I started to make connections. At that point, I'm 18, 19. I'm a young adult, and I'm starting to move around and build my network.
Right.
So in moving around and building my network, that actually opened me up to new opportunity to meet people and see, well, hey, there's this other path that I could do that's connected to music, that is within entertainment, and it allowed me to pivot, and make that transition to get, on the music and entertainment path, which I've been on for the last 25 plus years.
This idea of there being so many different ways of engaging with music is so important for students to hear about, everybody, but especially students, because I think there's this sort of common understanding that engagement with music is for this very narrow group of people, and that's it. And then everybody else is just listening. You know? But there are these other ways of getting involved and getting locked in with the music community that can also be career possibilities for students. So I think this aspect of your story is really interesting to me, and I think really relevant to young people.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of music and entertainment that young people can be involved in. Behind the scenes, from business affairs and legal to finance, where no one ever talks about finance. Right. No one ever talks about, math and music and entertainment. But yeah, it's a business. And I think the commonality of everyone that works at a label, whether they're in the finance department or the A&R department, which signs the talent, we have a love of music.
Right.
We have a love of music and entertainment. And it's great to have that understanding that, wow, if I love music, but I also, might love tech and web development, I could still potentially work at, a record label or an entertainment company or a streaming, service, because all of these different departments and all of these different, people behind the scenes make up, for the artists and the shows and the videos and everything that you see that's in front of the camera.
And now for a short break. This podcast is brought to you by Education Through Music. ETM is a nonprofit organization that partners with under-resourced schools to provide music as a core subject for all children, and utilizes music education as a catalyst to improve overall achievement, motivation, and self-confidence amongst students. To learn more or support the work of education through music, check out etmonline.org. So you were at Tommy Boy Records from 96 to 2001.
Yeah, 95.
95.
Because I started as an intern in 95.
Right.
Yep.
And that was, so were you still at Penn State at that point, or had you
No,
moved to CUNY?
I was at City College.
Or City College, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, when I started at Tommy Boy, I think it was my last year. You know, I was my senior year at City College. And interesting story about that is I was like most, young college students, broke. I was, living at home. I just applied for, I was like, I just applied for a job. And I remember this day kind of vividly. I had applied for a job at Cablevision, which was in the Bronx. And, because I had to get a job, like
right.
I got the job, right? I got hired. And then the next day, I got a call that I got accepted for this internship at Tommy Boy. And it was like, I just got this job, I needed the job, right? Am I gonna take the job or do this internship? Because I couldn't do both, just based on the job was a full-time job, the internship, granted, I was still in school, and the internship, it was several hours that I needed to be available. And I took the internship. That changed my life.
When I think of an internship, especially, senior year of college or just out of college, I don't think of necessarily an executive track. So I'm wondering how, in particular, your musical experiences as a young adult, high school, college, impacted that trajectory, if at all.
I think, just my early exposure to music, whether it was in school or around school or just with my friends, and it just kind of shaped how music has and remains a part of who I am and my personal and professional life. As long as I've been in this business, I still don't take it for granted, because I realize that it's a great opportunity to work within music, to be a part of music, to work with and break some of the artists that I've been involved with. And it's competitive. You have to stay passionate. You have to stay urgent. You have to, stay appreciative, because, it's not for everyone.
Some of the artists you've worked with, everybody in the audience will recognize. I wonder if there are some particular artists who sort of come to mind most immediately as having interesting stories, or the way that your relationship was fruitful in getting them sort of out into people's ears.
I've worked with so many great artists through the various phases of my career.
Mm-hmm.
De La Soul, for example, when I started my career at Tommy Boy, was a dream to actually work with them, because they were and still are actually one of my favorite groups of all time. But as you can imagine, as a young kid starting to work with this group who I idolized, and going on the road with them and doing promo with them, to actually years later being friends, they had a tremendous impact in terms of my approach to building a bond and a connection with artists. To when, my stint at Def Jam, which Def Jam is definitely one of the, most historic, labels in hip hop and music, and, working with artists, like Rick Ross and Young Jeezy and Kanye West. And what was important about each of those acts was their commitment to their art and their craft, and their drive to, the great artists that we're building at Warner, and, working with Saweetie and NLE Choppa and Dua Lipa and BB Rexa, just to name a few.
Yeah.
I think each of these artists, they have that commonality of drive, talent, hustle,
Right.
which is always important. And then, of course, surrounding themselves with the right people that can help amplify and understand the vision that they have. And, I think that's always been my approach to just having consistency with the artist and building credibility with the artist, but integrity in my approach. And I think what the team that I'm usually involved in our approach to, again, how we support the art, how we support their music and their careers just as we're supporting ours.
If you could talk to an audience of music teachers about what music programming needs in schools in order for young people to come out ready to be a part of this experience with artists, to develop their craft and to develop their product and make it accessible to a huge audience, what would you tell them about those about the trajectory of that programming?
There's a number of things I would tell them. I think that whether you're an artist, singer, you play an instrument, or you're behind the scenes, I think there's still the same level of discipline that's needed. I think there's that level of focus in terms of being the best and understanding the craft. There's a tremendous amount of patience that's needed. And I say that particularly for today's generation because we are in an instant gratification generation.
Right.
Everything is instant now. I want to be a star overnight, or I want to be an EVP overnight, right, or I want to teach a class overnight, where I think there's a level of patience that needs to be understood in terms of learning the craft, learning how you can grow and develop within it and gaining that experience. That to me, I feel so much more rewarded having achieved tremendous things over a long, amount of time versus a short amount of time. So I think that those fundamentals are important, not only just on the artist community side of music, but the professional side of music.
That'll resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because the music is something that just takes a long time to develop, and to if you're gonna do it the right way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I talk to a number of the artists that I work with still in terms of it's not gonna happen overnight. Like it could. Don't get me wrong. Right. And there's definitely examples and stories where, there's instant overnight hits. It happens. But those, are the unicorns in the space, and, for everyone else, it's about the consistency of what you're doing and what you want to do. And you could have success, but you also have to understand that success might not be instantaneous. Right. And you have to have the patience, the discipline, the fortitude, but also the drive to stick with it.
Chris, thanks so much for your time and for your inspiring story and for bringing this insight to the listener.
No, thank you. Thanks for the time, and always excited to, share some information, and hopefully it helps.
Is there anybody you can think of who might want to talk to us?
Kevin Lyles, who is the CEO of 300 Entertainment. He's been a big brother to so many, including myself. I think he would be great, and his insights and expertise would be tremendously valuable, and I think he would do it. So I call him out